So hey everyone, it is Mrs. Ottens. I teach the 4 and 5-year-old preschool classes. This is my 31st year teaching, so I do have a little bit of background knowledge on the importance of naming and recognizing letters and then corresponding their individual sounds. So I'm going to be reading off some notes just so that I don't forget anything, and I will be putting my glasses on and off so that I can actually see what I am reading. So the importance of letter naming and recognizing the letters in preschool is super important. Learning letters and their corresponding sounds in preschool is very important because it builds the foundation for reading, writing, and overall school success. So knowing and recognizing the letters A through Z and the sounds that they make, which is phonics, helps children to understand how words are formed. This is the first step that the older children take. It's called decoding, which allows the children to read new words instead of just memorizing them. So recognizing and naming letters is one of my main goals that I work on in preschool. It's one of the most important things that I feel children can receive in preschool before they get to kindergarten. So being able to recognize the letters and naming them in pre-K helps children to understand that letters make sounds and those sounds form words. This is the first step that children will take in their journey to reading. So, and it is also, before I forget, is a huge key predictor of later reading readiness. So children who come out of preschool knowing their upper and lowercase letters, or most of their lowercase letters, and correlating those sounds have a better time in kindergarten and future reading readiness, I should say. So breaking it down even further, during the early years, I would say between the ages of 18 months and 6 years old, our brains are more receptive to language patterns, which helps strengthen memory, attention, problem-solving skills. So all those children between 18 months and 6 years old have synapses in their brains, and they're not quite connected yet. So their little brains are receiving information left and right, and they're absorbing them like a sponge. So by the time they're 7 years old, those synapses have closed, and now it's time for those children to actually use their brain, the different parts of the brain that Miss Morris talks about, so that they can start learning the different ways that you can learn to read, and that way that they are more successful in their reading. Children who already know their letters before kindergarten can focus more easily on reading and learning and are more confident in participating in class. They're less anxious about schoolwork, and they're more willing to try to read. Letter recognition helps children write their name, become more curious about print in their world. So driving to McDonald's and knowing that big sign says McDonald's, or pulling up to a stop sign and knowing STOP says stop. It makes them more curious. What does this say? What does this say? Because they understand that those letters put together make words, and those letters each have a sound, so that it makes it easier for them to want to read. Besides making them less anxious about schoolwork, it really encourages them to read. So during this time of the year, a lot of the preschoolers are like, can you spell this? Can you spell this? How do you spell this, Mrs. Ottens? And they're actually going around my room and writing words. So they're really interested in that. So that is one indicator how important preschool is, and letter naming and recognizing. So letter recognition helps children write their name and become more curious about the print in their world. So letter mastering is not necessarily a goal in preschool, even though we really encourage it. But overall, we just like to be able to familiarize the children with the letters, just so that they do have an easier time in kindergarten. So as much exposure as you can give children at school and at home with letters, with print, with sounds, makes them more familiar and gives them a lot more confidence. So some things that you guys can do at home that we do at school that you can help encourage your child or your children to become fluent in their letters and their sounds is give them ABC puzzles. We like to do sensory bins that have seek and find. They have to pull out the letters and match the letters. Shaving cream, we put this on cookie sheets and actually have them write their letters on cookie sheet, say the letter out loud, and then say the sound. Forming letters with Play-Doh, letter magnets, tracing letters in salt, definitely singing songs that have to do with letters. When we sing the ABC song, we actually have our ABC chart in front of us. We point A, B, C, D. So we're kind of singing the tune of ABCs, but we're actually pointing to each letter so that their brain is correlating. That letter has a name. That letter has a sound. So going slow with the ABC song is kind of the new way that we've been teaching it. Books, letter books, ABC books, having your child point to them. While they're pointing to them, having them make the sounds. So anything like that is great. Flashcards, I'm still old school, so I really do like flashcards for letter naming and letter recognizing. So the importance of knowing upper and lowercase letters and working after that toward their sounds is very important. So during our letter naming in preschool, we do take an extra step and teach the sound that corresponds with each letter. Letter sound knowledge strengthens listening skills and helps children recognize patterns in spoken language. When children know letter sounds, they become more interested in writing letters, and this leads to them writing their name and simple words. It also pairs with increasing their fine motor. So the more that they get familiar with letters and they want to write letters and words, it increases their fine motor. And they understand that that print carries meaning. So learning that each letter makes individual sounds. So the individual sounds are phonemes, like B says B, A says A, T says T. It helps those children, once they know those sounds, to put them together to start forming those words. So they're decoding B, at, put it together, bat. So right now, I do have about 5 or 6 children who know their letters and their sounds and are starting to put those phonemes, those letters together, and they're forming their words. So it's really exciting right now. Research has consistently shown that children who enter kindergarten with letter and letter sound knowledge are more likely to become fluent readers in the later grades. And everyone wants their children to be successful. Some letter sound games that you can use at home to increase those sounds is using magnetic or foam letters and playing match that letter to that sound. So you can say, all right, I'm thinking of B, 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 B. Which letter says B? And then they can pull the magnet B over and stick it on the fridge or stick it on a cookie sheet. Sorting pictures that have that letter sound. So having some pictures out like bat, ball, baby, and say, all right, I'm thinking of bat, baby, ball. What letter matches that sound? And then they can find the B and put it with those pictures. Overemphasizing that beginning sounds and pointing to the letter that it matches. So I am thinking of cat. What letter says and then there's C? So then they pull it out. Some might say K, which is fine because I know that that letter makes that sound. But just overemphasizing that beginning letter sound. Definitely letter sound songs, letter sound books, using children's names. I do this all the time in my classroom to learn letters and sounds. So when I'm pulling out names and we're like, Brooklyn, everybody's like, that starts with a B. Absolutely it does. So these children are starting to recognize not only their name and the letters and the sounds in their name, but all of their friends as well. Something that's a little underrated that I find is important is definitely rhyming words. So we do a segment called Phonemic Awareness, and it's a quick 5 minutes where we work on beginning letter sounds, ending letter sounds, middle letter sounds. We work on breaking our sounds apart. So if the word is book, B, ook, knowing that that word has 2 syllables, and then really emphasizing that beginning letter sound. And we also have a nursery rhyme at the end. So this week we're doing Little Boy Blue. And so we pause and we find the rhyming words. So children are listening to those sounds and they're correlating that they rhyme. And then we do the difference between rhyming and then beginning letter sounds. And then definitely we always take a day and we brainstorm words. So if we're working on the letter M, we will talk about all the words that we can possibly think of that start with M. I write it on chart paper. That way the kids can see. They can write it themselves throughout the week. And they can ask me, what does this say? This is an M. M says, And they're very interested. So that's about all I have. So parents, anybody between the ages of birth and 6 years old, concentrating and really working hard on beginning letters, all those uppercase letters, those beginning or those lowercase letters, knowing your letters and then learning those sounds that correlate with those letters really will give your children a head start for kindergarten and definitely for the upper grades. If there's any activities that any parent that is watching this needs more explanation on, just email me at kattens@plt3.org, and I will be more than happy to send out some activities. So have a great night and happy letter sound learning and letter naming learning.